This is Phil Parrish from the Legends of DC, Nuff Said, and Before the Bad podcast. And when I'm not talking all things DC and Marvel Comics, I'm listening to Set Lusting Bruce with Springsteen superfan Jesse Jackson.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Set Lusting Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson, and I am so proud and so happy to have Ellen on the podcast today. Hey, Ellen, how you doing?
I'm doing great tonight, Jesse. Thank you for having me.
Yes, Ellen, as we're recording this, it is the night before the election. And I was busy recording a quick We Take Care of Our Own podcast, but Ellen gave me the brief rundown of Bruce's mini set that he just did at the rally. So he sounded good.
He sounded very good. He sounded very good. Anything with Bruce is great. As a matter of fact, I just purchased tickets this evening for the Rainforest event at Carnegie Hall that Trudy Styler does every year because one of the reasons is, well, it's a great cause, and Bruce is going to be performing along with Sting and James Taylor and Chris Botti.
Ooh, that'll be nice.
Yeah.
That sounds really good. Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to have Ellen introduce herself and talk a little about, but I want to say that I'm especially happy that she reached out to me because, listeners, I end my podcast, almost every podcast, with if you want to share your Bruce Springsteen story. And I don't get a lot of people reaching out to me. I feel at times like a life insurance salesman. No disrespect meant to the fine people who work for insurance, but you're always prospecting. I'm always looking for people to talk to. And Ellen actually did that. She sent me through Facebook saying, "Hey, thanks for making my friend. I want to talk about Bruce." I went, "Yay!" So thank you, Ellen. You made my heart sing and my face smile. So tell me a little about yourself.
Okay, well, Jesse, thank you. I did reach out. I actually, through Bruce Book, one of your posts actually prior to your sharing the Bruce story was about things that you were grateful for, as well as you had made a reference to breast cancer survivors and stories. And a couple of things touched me. I am celebrating 30 years this week being a survivor of breast cancer.
Very nice. That is wonderful to share.
And I'm very thankful and grateful to be having this conversation today, because had it not been for taking the advice of a doctor and having a biopsy for peace of mind, I wouldn't be alive today. So I'm very grateful.
That is awesome.
For that.
That is, and good advice. We're going to talk a little bit more of that in a minute. But yeah, go ahead, continue.
I will continue.
Yes.
Bruce Springsteen has been in my life since the mid-1970s. My older brother introduced me to his music, and it bonded us closer together. And I have been to several Bruce Springsteen concerts, and as I have grown up and grown with Bruce, my connection to his music, his songs has gone deeper and deeper. When I'm at a Bruce concert, I'm in my happy place, and I've said that from day one. And it really wasn't until the recent tour with the River, which I saw 3 times, broke the budget, uh, that I realized, and knowing a little bit more about Bruce and where he came from, what the connections are that I have
Well,
to his music.
well, that's interesting. One of the things that strikes me right away there,
Mhm.
and as I go through this podcast, there's a lot of stories about siblings, and
Mhm.
I have a fair amount of people who are the oldest that tend
Mhm.
to influence their younger brothers and sisters, but I have just as many that have older brothers and sisters that kind of help them find their musical identity, not just with Bruce, but with other bands. So I think that's
Mhm.
interesting that your brother kind of was that, musical mentor in a lot of ways.
Yes. Yes. He was. He was. And I have lots of good memories um, with listening to Bruce music with my brother and actually going to several concerts with him. My brother lives out in California. He's been there over 30 years, and I've actually flown out there just to see my brother and to see Bruce out in LA
Yeah, I
with
mean,
him.
that's kind of
Mhm.
a, twofer. Well,
Mhm.
let's go back to, okay, when you were a child, what kind of music
Mhm.
did your family listen to? Was it a was it
Mhm.
a big musical family, or was it not something that your family was into?
No. No, the only real memories I have about music and my family, perhaps the only positive memory was watching the Ed Sullivan Show and watching the Beatles when they debuted on the Ed Sullivan Show. And not really a musical family. Not really at all. Music was something that I learned via my brother.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in school, I wanted to sing, but I had a horrible singing voice. So, so as a matter of fact, when I tried out for the choir, the teacher said, "You have a cold," and I didn't, but I said yes, and she said, "Come back when you get over it." Um, but I was determined to do something musical, so I took up the flute and
Okay.
played the flute throughout high school, had private lessons, marching band, and the more I learned, the more I played, the more pressure I felt, and it wasn't fun anymore, so I actually decided not to play because I felt of all this pressure.
Yeah.
And years later, watching the Boston Pops on TV with my parents, my father would say, "See, that could have been you." And I would say, "See the waitress? That could have been me too."
So, when did you graduate high school, Ellen?
I graduated in 1976.
Okay, so I graduated in 77, so we are
Mhm.
kindred spirits. Um,
Mhm.
now, if I we kind of talked a little bit before we started hitting record, but um, you were a little bit, I was a little more top 40 than you were, if I remember correctly, correct?
Mhm.
What kind of music
Yes.
did you like?
Um, I well, I liked in the 70s. I liked Fleetwood Mac, Air Trees. I liked Neil Young.
Okay.
back then. I love James Taylor. Um, absolutely love Bruce. But I do have to say, I do have to confess, my first album was Carole King Tapestry.
Oh, what a great album. And
Mhm.
and you just she's such an influence to so many people and just such a musical legacy. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
so you mentioned your brother helped you find music and
Mhm.
find Bruce. So
Mhm.
how did he first, expose you to Bruce's music and how did that kind of happen?
Mhm. Um. Well, it kind of happened. I was in college. I graduated in '76. I went away to school, upstate New York, very snowy, SUNY Oswego. I was miserable, and I called my brother. My brother lived. He went to school out in Colorado, actually in Boulder, Colorado, and he called me up, and he just said, Actually, he'd come home and he had been at the Bottom Line in New York City. As a matter of fact, he has a poster of like kind of the back of Bruce for the Bottom Line, and I think that was 73, 74. I'm not quite sure. And he just started playing music. And I started listening, and my brother was so happy, and it made him happy, and it made me happy, and it was great.
Do you Going back and
Mhm.
gosh, that's a long time ago for both of us. Do you
Mhm.
remember what first
What song?
captivated you or what about Bruce's music made you go, "Wow, that's, made you notice?"
Well, I think it was more about the whole package, meaning that it wasn't kind of. I remember, growing up, and this is going to sound funny, David Cassidy, oh, all the girls were, oh, he's so good looking, and my attraction to Bruce, well, he's easy on the eyes, but was more this. How do I put it into words? The person, just being, whether I'm in a small venue or a large venue, being in the room, the feeling, the emotion, um, the goodness, the kindness, the spirituality in a lot of respects that drew me to Bruce, continues to draw me to Bruce. I say this to people, no matter how many times I've seen him, it's like I'm seeing him for the first time.
Yeah.
I love the connection that he makes with everybody. I love the concerts that I've been to where his family has been there, where his mom has been there, and seeing his mom rock out, and he just pours his heart and soul into every performance, and you can feel it. I believe he's genuine. It's interesting when you read his book. Right up front. He says he's a fraud, but I don't think he's a fraud.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of other people that are frauds, at least the way I interpret the word fraud. But I just think that he is who he is, and he's honest. He gives it his all, and that draws me to his music. And I think his words are so powerful. And in listening, as I said, as being older now, from the 70s to now, and into the river and the meanings and the struggles. I think so many people can relate. I certainly can relate. I grew up, my childhood was not a very happy one, and my father was a terror in our household and caused lots of fear. So I can kind of relate to these songs that he writes and these stories that he tells. So
Yeah, I
there you go.
I loved, the autobiography. I do think he opened his soul and shared a lot of different things.
Mhm.
Very, very much. Um, and you're right. I think all of us have problems at times with our parents in different ways. But that's
Mhm.
interesting, the parallel between your father and, his
Mhm.
father.
Mhm. Yeah. It is. It is. It is interesting. It really is. I find lots of different parallels, and I did have the opportunity to do one of the meet and greets in Philly, and I wrote a one-page letter, which I actually gave him two copies of, just telling him about the connections I have to his music, and really to sum it up, Jesse, it's that when I'm at a concert, I feel alive. I feel at peace. I feel like I'm healing. I feel like I connect to a lot of emotions that sometimes are painful, but that we all need to face some of that pain to move forward. But it goes deep. So I kind of go through the spectrum, but I keep going to the concerts because like I said, overall, I'm in my happy place, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
I've said many times, and this is a line that I stole from a good friend of mine, with all excuses to Disney, the happiest place on earth is a Bruce Springsteen concert. And
yeah.
you are with, your 10 to 20,000, fellow Bruce fans, and it's this feeling of family and togetherness, and it is a it is an enjoyable thing. Um, my wife is worried that I'm missing Bruce Springsteen perform live, and
Mhm.
she is watching. Um,
Mhm.
yeah. So, do you remember the first time you saw him perform?
You know what? I don't remember the first. I don't remember the first concert. I remember moments at many, at many of the concerts. I don't remember the first time I saw him. I do remember that. Do remember a couple of things. So I do remember a concert I went to. I went to the Tom Joad
Oh,
uh,
nice.
acoustic concert at the Beacon Theater. Back, I think it was 1995, and I was a lot younger then.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because I went with a friend of mine, and when I left, we went through the whole thing. The whole time I was waiting for that moment where he would kind of break out into Born to Run,
Mm-hmm.
Thunder Row, and that never happened. And I didn't really appreciate the music of Tom Joad
Mm-hmm.
then. When I left there, I was like, oh my God, I'm so depressed.
Yeah.
um, you know, and now being a little older and a little wiser, you know, those songs are really powerful and a different
Yes.
appreciation. Um, I mean, just recently I saw him at the Meadowlands also at the end of the river tour. here in the U.S. And those concerts were great, and he was having a great time. And you were talking about when you're at a concert, people are happy, they're enjoying it, families go. I had extra tickets, and there was a girl with her dad, and she had a sign saying, "I have high hopes." And I went up to them, and the dad said, "Well, she's looking to go to her first Bruce Springsteen concert." So I said, "Well, just make me an offer." And I basically gave the tickets away, and I felt so good. I felt so happy. My friend turned to me. I had tears in my eyes, and my friend turned to me and she goes, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I just felt really good about that. I felt really good about that,
Mm-hmm.
And that's, and that was really positive, and that was terrific because, prior to that, somebody had approached me and he was like, "Well, whatever," and he was kind of really mean, and I'm like, okay, and it was like the look on this girl's face was priceless, and anyway, so
Yeah.
I feel like
Which
I'm going all over the place.
no, you're doing great. You're doing great.
Mhm.
Which shows did you go to in Jersey? Which ones on the for the Met at the Metro, stadium?
At the Meadowlands, I
Uh,
went. I went to all three
okay.
concerts.
Nice.
I, I went. Yeah. Well, you know what? I the, people have addictions, and Bruce's and the E Street Band are one of my addictions. And it because I'm so in my happy place when I
Yeah.
go, I just I just go, and I went. I didn't think I'd go all 3 nights, and I went all 3 nights. Um, and it was amazing, and each show was different. Each show had a different vibe,
Mm-hmm.
had kind of had a different tone. And each show was amazing, and I'm glad
Yeah, it sounds like.
I'm glad that I
Did you make any of the shows before he went to Europe where he was doing the River in Total?
yes, I saw him at the Barclays Center with my husband and my son.
Okay.
Um, I saw him with my husband. We drove up to Hartford, and I saw him at the oh God, this is the Prudential Center in New Jersey. So
Nice.
I saw him do the river 3 times. Yes, from beginning to end. Yes.
Very.
So I saw him 6 times on this latest tour.
It was
I
it
know.
it was a very good Bruce year, is what you're telling me,
It
right?
was it was a very good Bruce year, and it's now going to extend a little bit by seeing him at Carnegie Hall in
Nice.
December.
Yeah.
And actually, it was an excellent Bruce year because, I mean, if anything, I mean, just being able to meet him, a friend of mine, through a friend of, had a friend that worked at the library in Philadelphia, and I actually got my 8 seconds to shake his hand, get a hug, give him my letter, and say to him, "I woke up this morning in the land of hope and dreams."
Oh, I love that. That's a
Yeah,
beautiful thing, Ellen. That's
yeah.
nice. What did he say?
He looked at me and he smiled and he said, "Thank you." I said, "I wrote this." He took the letter, and I remember looking at his hand, and he took the letter and then he handed it to somebody
Yeah.
who works from him, and then we smiled, took the picture, and I said, "Can I give you a hug?" And he said yes. I gave him
Uh-uh.
a hug, and And then off I went, and then I waited for him to leave the library and saw him get into his car and take off for home. And it was awesome. And what was really awesome about that too was the 2.5 hour wait online to see him went very quickly because we were just a bunch of people, part of the Bruce Nation, if you will, just talking and sharing stories and why we were there, and we had a great time. And the people I was online with, at the end after we went through, we saw each other and we hugged, and I've been in touch. I've made 3 new friends in Philadelphia who we're friends. We stayed in touch, and it's great.
That's
It's
awesome.
great.
That's
Mhm.
that's so beautiful, and I'm so glad, and I'm glad you got to share your letter to him. I know
Mhm.
that a lot of people talked about that they had a spot where you could drop it off, or like in your case, give it to him and he kept it. So you knew that he has the opportunity to read this and feel this, and I know it means it based on the interviews I've read. It sounds like all these book appearances have been as special to him as it's been to the
Mhm.
fans lucky enough to go to it.
Yeah, I think these book inter these meet and greets are definitely for him going out of his comfort zone
Yeah, that's
because
interesting.
because I think from everything you read, he's always, I mean, yeah, when in reading his book, it's like he transforms on stage, like the person that we see in the 4 hour concert. I mean, that's his being, that's his therapy, but he's always been a
Mhm.
pretty private person, and that's one
Yeah.
of the things. I mean, you never really read. There have been like 1 or 2 hints of a scandal over the years, but you've never really read about scandals in his
Right.
life or problems with his kids, like with other people famous
Right.
like him. And I really think that I appreciate it from a fan's perspective that he didn't need to do this book tour to sell his books.
No, he didn't.
They would have sold. He didn't
Yes.
need to. He doesn't need to do. He doesn't need to do anything. You know. I mean, he's
Right.
done so much,
I agree.
and the fact that he he's he did these books. The book meet and greets. Um, it's not. It's like I said. I really think he was going out of his comfort zone because he wanted to be able to connect one on one with fans like me,
Mhm.
who were so blessed to be able um, to get a ticket, to get the opportunity to
Yeah.
do this. Because I never would have thought, unless you know somebody who knows somebody or has a lot of money, a really strong connection, Um, so yeah, I I'm really grateful that I had this opportunity because I never thought that I would
Yeah.
have had this, and I still think about it and I'm like, wow,
Yeah,
that
that's
really
that's
happened.
awesome. So, Ellen, do you have any meaningful songs or albums of his?
Mhm.
You talked about
Mhm.
you're a longtime breast cancer survivor, and I know from
Mhm.
your note you found out
Mhm.
you had breast cancer at a very interesting time.
Um. Well, yes, I did. I found out that I had breast cancer 5 days before my wedding. My
Wow.
30th anniversary will be November 9th,
Hmm.
and November 4th, which happened to be a Tuesday and was election day 30 years ago, is when I found out I had breast cancer. And at that moment, I felt like my life really had gone out the window. But my husband and I, we got married, and we're celebrating 30 years together. We have a 23-year-old son who is a Bruce fan. And one of my pleasures is we've gone to concerts together. We even made a journey to Boston a couple
Mm-hmm.
of years ago to Fenway Park as a family, and saw Bruce Springsteen. And for songs, anything that stands out for me, I love The Land of Hope and Dreams.
Sure.
When he played it at one of the MetLife concerts, I turned to my husband. I was like a little kid, so excited because I hadn't heard him play that live in a very long time. For
Right.
me, Land of Hope and Dreams, The Rising, on a lot of levels. When I'm listening to The Rising, I turn it up in my car. I feel empowered. I feel strength.
Mm-hmm. Was there
Um,
anything
hmm
that you specifically listened to as you were, kind of
Going
to
through
help
my
going
treatment.
through your treatment? Yes.
hmm Born to Run.
Okay.
Because I mean, I pictured myself just getting on a motorcycle and just taking off
Mm-hmm.
and and running. I had mentioned The Rising because I was in Lower Manhattan
Yeah.
um, uh, with 9/11,
Mm-hmm.
and saw very closely, too close,
Yeah, it sounds like it.
what was happening. Yeah. And so on a lot of levels about rebuilding and healing and connecting and plowing through. hmm
You know, Ellen, so it sounds like your husband is a fan as well.
Yes, my husband is a fan. He became a fan when we met.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he really, he wasn't really into Bruce like I was into Bruce, and he started going to concerts with me because that's what husbands do. They make their
Right.
wives happy.
Absolutely.
And he has become he's become a big fan. And our son, I mean, sharing the music with our son
Mm-hmm.
is great. It's just it's really it's great because when I think about it, I was younger than he is when I started listening to Bruce,
Yeah.
and he's enjoying this music, and it's really kind of freaky.
You know, I think it's amazing that this musical journey and this journey of living in the land of hope and dreams, as you talked about it, is
Mhm.
one of my favorite lines is you'll need a good companion on this part of the ride. And
Mhm.
I just can imagine how scared you both were being young and
Mhm.
you're about to get married and you find out that you have breast cancer and you got to come up with a plan and you guys
Mhm.
go through this together and you come out
Mhm.
stronger and better together. And there is a sweetness that your wedding anniversary and your finding out you have this horrible disease kind of combined together.
Mhm.
Great
Yes,
sadness and a great fear, but at the same time, great joy, correct?
exactly. And also the other line, your faith will be rewarded.
Yeah.
And I never lost my faith. And, one of the things for me, because being a young woman in my 20s with being diagnosed with breast cancer and going through surgery and radiation and chemotherapy, one of the things 30 years ago I kept asking the doctor was, what about children? What
Yeah.
about children? Because I always wanted to have a boatload of children. I love kids.
Right.
And my doctor would look at me and say, kind of like, you know what, let's not go there right now. I don't really have an answer. I
Wow.
can't tell you. And when I made my 5-year mark,
Mm.
yeah, I said to the doctor, I said, what do you think? And he said to me, I really don't have an answer. And my husband and I just said, kind of our faith will be rewarded.
Yeah.
If it was meant to be, it will happen. And it happened. I was diagnosed in 1986, and our son was born in 1993. So our faith was rewarded. And,
That's
I'm healthy. Our son is healthy. My husband's healthy. So yes, the land of hope and dreams.
so I will tell you, Ellen, you've hit the hat trick in this one episode. You've shared your Bruce story. You've shared your meeting him at the bookstore,
Mhm.
and you've shared your gratefulness along with your
Mhm.
surviving.
Mhm.
This has just been so wonderful, and I'm so glad you opened up and reached out to me and shared the story. That's you know I have a lot of fans of Bruce's music that have talked about, no retreat, no surrender, of just,
Mhm.
playing that song over and over again. And,
Mhm.
and I am sure there are other musicians that have fandom, but it's maybe because I do this podcast, but I hear so many wonderful stories from people talking about how his music has helped them through so many things in their life, and I'm so glad you
Mhm.
shared the story.
Thank you. And then thank you, Jesse, for doing what you do. And I'm really glad that we connected.
Well, I am so glad too. Um, so any final thoughts?
Um, just that. Thank you.
You
Thank
are
you so much.
you are very
I,
welcome.
you know,
Yeah,
thank you. Thank you so much.
wow, this was beautiful. Do you have a Twitter account, or how can someone reach you if they want to reach out to you?
Well, if they want to reach out to me, right now the best, you can reach out to me on Facebook.
Okay, good.
Is
I
that,
will put that link. Okay,
I'm on as Ellen Warsaw Bren.
okay. I will do that.
Mhm.
Very good. Well, hang tight while I do a little bit of business. And if you
Okay.
want to be like Ellen and join me on the show to talk about Bruce Springsteen and all that applies, reach out to me at setlustingbruce@gmail.com. We have a Facebook page, Set Lusting Bruce, and I on Twitter at Set Lusting Bruce. My personal Twitter is at Jesse Jackson DFW. And if you get a chance, go to iTunes or and rate and review us. It is how people find us. Ellen, you are a joy, and I am so glad to call you my Bruce sister. And we are going to
Well,
end this with The Highways Jammed with Broken Heroes on a Last Chance Power Drive. Everybody's out on the run tonight, but there's no place left to hide. Together, Wendy, we can live with the sadness. I love you with all the madness in my soul. Someday, girl, I don't know when, we're going to get to that place where we really want to go, and we'll walk in the sun. But till then, tramps like us, baby, we were born to run. Thank you, Ellen. Thank you, listeners.